Hello. So welcome back to Aether. So today it's going to be myself. So Tony is not able to join us today. So I hope to keep you entertained and informed. So today what we're going to focus on is part 2 of What Does It Take to Heal? And that should say episode 76. Okay. I missed that one. Okay, as always, questions and comments are welcome. So please just say hi, join in with any questions you have, and I can weave that into the subject today, and we can dive deeper into what's affecting you. Last week we talked about, in part 1, we talked about, what does it really take? What the heck does it take in order to actually heal? And this is a big question. I mean, it's the question of what we're addressing on this channel. And the thing is that we're trained through our lives to think in physical terms, right? We think of we've got X problem. We go to the doctor, and they say we got this problem or that problem, and we're feeling physical effects, and I've been there, and it can be really tough, and it makes sense what the doctor's saying, but what we're saying here on our channel and with what we do is that we're complicated beings. We have a lot going on inside us, in the world around us, that has an effect on us that goes beyond the directly physical stuff, right? So I'm talking about here psychological stuff. So if I believe that, right, that based on my experience through my life, that I don't deserve to be loved, for example, then it's going to be hard for me if I believe that at a subconscious level. Like maybe on a conscious level, I think, sure, why not me, right? But if I believe at a subconscious level that somehow I don't really deserve it, then that's going to manifest in my life in a lot of different ways. It's going to obviously affect relationship, and the relationship can be, if I don't deserve love in the relationship, for example, that's just one example. There's so many I could pick, but that's my subconscious belief. And honestly, that's actually what I did believe. And that was very hard for me because I would create relationships that, that would reinforce that, and would, negative stuff would come my way, and I would accept it because I felt like that's really what I deserved, because that was the best I could expect, and that kind of thing. We have to be worthy of the good stuff in life before we can, we have to feel that we're worthy of it before we allow space for it. And the good stuff, includes physical health, right? So that's all part of the picture. That transcends, so many different aspects of the relationships, like I was saying there, right? So that relationship can be very, very hard on me psychologically. It can reinforce other things. So I can, think that I'm not worthy. I can think that that my confidence can be really low, and all that kind of thing. And it can get very complicated, and it can snowball, right? So we can use the law of attraction against ourselves, because the law of attraction is not a positive force. We talk about it in terms of, creating what we want in our lives. But the thing is, we're not really conscious of 95% of ourselves, and that 95%, that's subconscious. By definition, it's outside of our general awareness. That's only, who we are and what we think of ourselves, and our personalities, and maybe we're outgoing or fun-loving and all that kind of stuff, whatever. But that's the 5% of us. All that problem-solving ability, all that, all the choices that we make, our willpower, all that stuff is governed by our conscious mind. And we can convince ourselves with our conscious mind that we want to be healed. But our subconscious mind can have very different ideas. And it's all a matter of it wanting us to be safe. So, pardon me. So if our subconscious mind does not feel that it's safe for us to be loved, and believe me, we can come to those conclusions, because we can be very familiar with, not being loved, and familiar seems safe. And we've survived up to this point being a certain way, whatever that is. And so we feel as though that way is the way to be, because it's gotten us this far. We've gone through a lot of stuff, right? Typically in our lives, we experience a lot of things, and not all of them are great. And we have all our struggles and all that kind of stuff. And we have seen ourselves through that stuff by being just, the way we're accustomed to being, without really knowing what a lot of that is. And that's where the subconscious mind comes in. So our subconscious mind can have very different ideas, and can push us into keeping things exactly as they are, and therefore not allowing us, if we don't, let's say, go with the example of not loving ourselves, that we don't deserve the good things, we don't deserve health. And so we're using that law of attraction in a subtle way through our whole day, all day long. We're using the law because it's always working, right? And our subconscious mind has so much power to it. It's 95, like I said, 95% of our consciousness. That's a lot of power, right? And we're using that all day long, just being ourself, right? Just being like what we think of as ourself, what we're accustomed to being, how we've grown up, and just how we think of it just being normal, right? And by being that way, and if that way is not deserving of love, we are using the law of attraction against ourselves all day long, of not deserving self-love, not being confident, not having the self-worth, right? Those kinds of things, right? Whatever that maybe that doesn't apply to you, but it could be a different set of beliefs that are limiting, right? And these things can be very subtle, you guys, and it's very powerful when they're there. They can be brought on by trauma. They can be brought on by simply us making a decision at some point. Maybe we had a breakup or something, and it just felt like that's just how it is for us, right? We decided that's just the way life is. Life sucks, right? That could be another one. Just believing that life sucks. So if we believe that, there's things are just negative, and that life is just not a great thing from day to day, and if we believe in things like a zero-sum game, which means like it's all going to end up back to the way it was, and there's no getting ahead, because it's going to be a lose-lose no matter what I do, kind of thing. If we have those kinds of beliefs, then that's what we're using with the law of attraction all day long, and with our subconscious mind very powerfully manifesting that reality for ourselves. So that's a tough one. It's tough to know that it's there, and how do we deal with it? How do we address it when it's a part of our life that's so fundamental to us? How do we make it? How do we change that? So that's what the work that we do, Mr. Tommy and I do all the time, is we help people come to an awareness of those things being there, and then shift those subconscious beliefs so they go from disempowering to empowering. So that's what this is all about. So what the heck does it take? A lot of times it takes unexpected stuff, right? You go to the doctor and he says you've got X, Y, and Z. Well, maybe the key to unraveling that is to let go of those subconscious beliefs, like not believing that we deserve love, right? Having some faith in ourselves, that kind of thing. That and making, if we were able to shift that, then we'd be able to start using the law of attraction, to our advantage instead of to our disadvantage, because it'd be working. That would be a new normal for us if we were to take that subconscious belief that's negative and shift it into a positive one. Then all day long we would be manifesting, we deserve love, we deserve the good things in life. And maybe life actually has something magical about it, something wonderful. Yes, it's challenging. That's going to happen. Pretty sure of that, right? It's going to be challenging, and it's going to be tough. It's going to turn you upside down. But all of those kinds of things that come along, they are, let me go to the next step in our thing here. The one I want to come to, because we already talked about, the last session we talked about it. Oh, sorry, here, it doesn't happen on our own terms. Let's do a quick review here. That healing doesn't happen on our own terms. We have to let life guide us as to what is the right approach, or the right way, the right direction for us, right? Instead of, the way making the change happen the way we want it to happen, because it doesn't work that way. What we feel comfortable changing is great, that's fine, but it may require letting go of something that we are uncomfortable with, that we cherish for some reason. And the cherishing can be very closely linked to that sense of safety, like I was saying, that sense of, okay, but if I let love in to my life, then then I could run the risk of having my heart broken again, right? And I just don't feel like I can deal with that. So it doesn't feel safe. So I don't want to do it. I don't want to let the love in, because I've been let down before, right? And that's hard. So it's a risk. And our subconscious mind doesn't want us to take that risk, right? So that's one of the things. And one is letting go instead of achieving. We talked about that. This is, a lot of people have the understanding that getting from A to B involves achievement. And what we were saying last time is it's actually about letting go. It's about letting go of that subconscious belief, for example, that we don't love ourselves. So it's more about letting go than it is about achieving, much more. I'll get to this one. Actually, there's a lot. No, I did that one. That letting go has a lot to do with relaxing, right? Just like we can chill, and that's something that I wasn't able to do for many years. I was not able to relax. That was a very difficult journey for me, and it has to do with that letting go, right, and not achieving thing. And just being aware. That's another one we're talking about, is just being aware. So you want to raise your awareness. And that's a challenge, because like I think we talked about in the last one, where like for me, for example, I was simply not aware that I would slip into a different way of me, a different type of me, a different Paul. And it was like a Paul that was really anxious and afraid and trying to control things, that kind of stuff. And that can be very subtle, that slip from one to the other. And so you want to be, so I had to be able to be aware of that. And to then, so once I was aware of it, then I could, I could work on it. And that makes a big difference. So that's a big part of it. This is what I wanted to get to today. Seeing the opportunity inside the problem and seizing that opportunity. So, okay. So, I was saying how life can come along and present these challenges to us, right? So, we've all experienced this, of course. Life presents what looks like a really nasty situation. Our partner is kind of freaking out, right? Or you got a giant phone bill, right? And you're going from kind of check to check, that kind of thing. You're like, oh my God, how am I going to pay for this, right? When life presents these things, they look like problems. And I know it really does look like a problem. So I understand, and it's very natural. And we're raised that way in our culture to think of things like, hey, everything's okay for now, but then something comes along and open up the mail and there's that bill. Oh, the world's smacking me around again, right? Like I was saying earlier, life is, lousy. It's an awful thing. So I just got to deal with it until you die, right? That kind of way of looking at things. We get these what look like problems, and they really look like problems, and they don't look like they belong to us. Like, you open up the mail and there it is. There's this crazy phone bill. So we can deal with it that way, and that's normal to deal with things as problems that you need to fix. Holy cow, I did that in the biggest way. Everything to me was a problem to fix. And the thing is that you can get somewhere with that. It's not as though that's completely without merit. But when we do that, then first of all, we're seeing no value whatsoever in that situation. It's just a downer that we need to get over. So just a piece of crap that landed on our laps, and we got to deal with it. So it's a very negative way of looking at things, and it precludes the possibility that maybe in this experience that there's something to this, right? So maybe you can just deal with it, like, oh, this is a problem I got to deal with. Maybe I can't go on that vacation I planned. Instead, I got to pay this stupid phone bill, right? And then consider that just to be a problem and a real bummer, right? I'm not saying that's a good thing. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is maybe inside that, that crappy situation, quote unquote crappy situation, maybe there's something to it. Maybe there's something of value in that we can make use of, right? So like what, right? It's just a big phone bill. Well, how do we feel when we're in that situation? Do we feel like shock, right? Like, oh my God, where did that come from? Out of the blue, out of the clear blue sky. Then you feel like, oh no, how am I going to pay for this? And then what about my vacation, right? And there's like all that kind of, we can easily go into sort of a catastrophic thinking kind of situation. We can, then be really mad, because then we're scared of that, and we get mad because we feel there's a connection. We've talked about this in previous episode where, underneath every bit of anger, it's actually driven by fear. And so in this kind of situation, this example, it's like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my vacation that I've been saving for. Then, you get mad because we feel as though by getting mad, we can deal with it. We can push that situation away. We can push, it's maybe kind of hard to do it with the bill, but we get mad at people around us a lot, right? And when they're bringing something to us that we don't like, when we're afraid that something bad is going to happen, then we get mad. And here we're afraid of something bad happening, which is, losing your vacation to pay this ridiculous bill. So when that's a way that we can deal with it, like just all negative, and it doesn't lead that far because it's just surviving, just you're trying to push the situation away. You'd rather not have anything to do with it, all that kind of stuff. But if we look at it from a different perspective, how does it make us feel inside, right? Like I was saying, the shock and the fear and the anger and all that kind of stuff. Okay, that's a signal. When we have those kind of negative feelings, that's a signal. Fear is a signal. Fear is like a great, signal. It's always like putting up that flag. Oh no, there's something bad's happening, or bad could happen, right? So that's fear's job. And we can thank our fear. This is what I'm suggesting. We can thank our fear and say, thank you for bringing my attention to this, right? Now I'll take it from here. So you can have a kind of conversation with your fear and say, thank you, fear, for bringing my attention to this. Now I'll take it from here, which is different, because if you let it, fear can just take the steering wheel and, take control of the situation. And that would be all negative. Your experience of it would be all negative if fear was in control. Pardon me. But if we shift our perspective and say, okay, I'm feeling this fear. Do I really need to? What is it that I'm holding on to? Because that's what fear is about losing something bad happening to part of your world, something you don't want to have happen. So what is it that I could possibly lose? Okay, my vacation time and all that enjoyment that I get from going, maybe it's if it's a big phone bill, maybe it's not the biggest vacation, but maybe you had a chance to take a drive to the Grand Canyon or something, right? So you wanted that experience, but now it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. So, okay, we can resent that and live with that really nasty emotion, all that resentment. Or maybe we can look at it from the point of view of, well, I'm holding on to this vacation because it's an escape for me from my crummy life, right? But what if their life wasn't crummy? What if life wasn't, just a nasty experience until you die? What if we challenged that assumption, right? What if we looked at it and thought about, well, hey, maybe I don't get to go on that vacation. Maybe I could do something smaller, closer to home. Maybe I could just, treat myself to some just some time with myself, time and, doing a little bit of outside yard work, just and plant some flowers and just get my hands in the dirt and connect to earth and all that kind of stuff. And maybe I can also shift the way I'm going about my day in general, right? So you could have a different experience. Or what about even going beyond that, like shifting my way of looking at my day in general? So instead of maybe having, a difficult, quote unquote, crummy life, and then getting these little escapes, little vacation escapes, because that's the only time you get to enjoy life is when you do that. What if we look at our lives and shift the way we're living our lives day to day, our normal day, so that it's not a crummy life? What if we did that? What if our normal life was a vacation? Maybe a challenging vacation, but in a sense, a vacation. What if there's something to enjoy? What if there's something to challenge us to bring out the best in us from day to day, from moment to moment, instead of pushing those challenges away? What if we flipped the script and look at them from a totally different perspective, and instead of seeing everything that comes along as a problem, we could look at it, possibly as an opportunity? So got a comment here from Scott. Thanks. Hey, Scott. Thanks for tuning in. So you got here, how do you heal certain problems without dragging up older problems? That's a very good question, Scott. So I'll dive into that too here. So that can be tricky, to be honest, right? Because when we crack into it and look at things the way I'm proposing here, this is pretty fundamental, and it has a fundamental, I'm talking about a fundamental shift in how we live our day, every single moment of every single day. So I don't see how that, first of all, is going to avoid bringing up other things, other issues. So you're dealing with this, okay, you're dealing with this big phone bill, and you decided to use that and deal with it differently than what you have all the way up to this point in your life. Instead of looking at it as a problem, you say, okay, I accept this. I can't talk to the phone company. I can't get out of this bill. Maybe I got them to reduce it by $100 or something, right? Whatever. But you're still dealing with a big bill that's going to take away that little vacation you had planned. So yeah, that's not great. I mean, it would be nice to have that vacation, right? But at the same time, you're looking at it and you're using that event as a trigger to look at your entire life in a totally different light. So that means everything that we're experiencing is going to be received differently than what it used to be. It used to be that we're receiving things as problems, and we don't want them. We're pushing them away. We're resisting life. There's the flow of life that we're all in. We're in it. We're in this flow of life here together, and it's wonderful to have you here, you guys. It's wonderful to have Satomi. It's wonderful to have the kids and everything else in our lives. But it's not easy. There's challenges that come along, and I have in the past looked at those as problems. So this is something I've made this shift, and that old way of looking at things, it's normal for our society, but it reduces everything to a negative throughout our day, and then we're just looking forward to that vacation as an escape. If it's instead we're dealing with these problems as they come along, and shifting them into opportunities, into how we can use that to improve ourselves, improve our experience of life, right? So to get more enjoyment out of life. So then that phone bill, right? Let's come back to that. Our old way of looking at it, it's just a problem. It's just a negative. It's something we'd rather not have. We're going to resist it. We're going to try to push it away. We're going to fight it. We're going to be angry about it. We're going to be so bummed out and resentful and all this kind of stuff. 100% negative. If we shift it around and look at it as an opportunity, then it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to deal with, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily just negative, because, hey, actually, that situation brought my attention to looking at my life a whole different way. And instead, I'm going to receive this as a challenge that I'll adapt my life to. And we can do that then, if we take it that far, then everything that comes along, every one of those nasty surprise bills that come along, every time that something comes up in our relationship that we really don't like, our partner is, being demanding or something, and just not understanding us, not seeing the situation from our perspective or whatever. Those aren't easy either, right? But maybe we can use those as opportunities, right? Instead of problems. So we can engage our whole day, all day long, while we're at home or while we're at work or wherever we are. And then as we do that, I can tell you that changes my fundamental experience of life. And instead of it just being a problem, just it's sucking and I'm resenting and carrying my past with me, and it's just dragging me down, and it's just, awful, right? All day long. It changes it into, hey, now I've got something I can engage with and possibly learn from and adapt to, and I can get something from this, right? So that's a very different experience. And not every one of those situations is going to be like going to reward us with something that we really like sitting on the beach or something, right? Or, looking at the Grand Canyon. Maybe we don't get that, but we get something else. First of all, there's an enjoyment of life in the challenge of it, for one. And that's very, very important. It's such a different experience of life than just looking at everything as just sucking, because that's just negative, right? So, but it can also be very rewarding, because if we do that and we then treat our relationship differently, so maybe our partner isn't understanding this, but if we, find out where they're coming from, because we're looking at things differently. Now it's not just a problem that my partner isn't understanding me. Um, um, I can see the perspective. I can shift my perspective into what my partner is wanting from the situation, and try to get into their head, and and then I'll open up the door to communication with them better. And then maybe in that avenue of communication, I'm going to go into their way of looking at things, and then provide them with more of what they're, meeting them with meeting their needs in a better way, and open up that channel for communication. There's an opportunity for me to perhaps share where I'm coming from. It doesn't guarantee anything there, right? You can't take the other person is responsible for their own thing, and you can't be guaranteed of a great outcome. But if your partner is willing to work with you, hopefully they are, then that can lead to an improvement in your relationship, better communication, compromise. So they, you're helping them meet their need, what they feel was their needs better. You might say, hey, well, how about then if we do this, and that would help me out, right? And then, maybe they go for it. So then you're pulling out from that experience something positive. Number one, you're like I said, you're fundamentally changing your experience of it. It's a challenge instead of, something you can get your problem solving abilities into. You can, master your emotions a little better in the situation. Work on that. All those kinds of things. You can help work on keeping yourself centered in in a challenging situation. All of those things, you're being more of your authentic self, and that's going to bring through something different into your experience of life, a very different element. But it's also going to create the opportunity for a better relationship with your partner. So that can make all the difference in the world. Like Scott's saying, you can have more things come up when you're doing this work. That can make it more complicated, and this isn't an easy process. It's a challenge, and like any challenge, it's going to require everything that you've got, right? Everything, and then it's going to probably require even more than what you thought you've got. Then somehow that you develop that muscle and be able to deal with more and more. That doesn't mean you take the world on your shoulders. Doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean you take responsibility for your partner. No, your partner's responsible for their own stuff, and that's a different set of questions. And then that can also bring up other things from your past, whatever, and you're doing the work. And you take that on as well, right? And you start to work with that. So it can lead to a long, long process. Honestly, it can be a lifetime of work. So Scott's saying, I'm finding that I'm dealing with healing some of the issues that I'm dealing with now concerning my bipolarity. I end up finding problems that I put into the back of my mind when I was younger, and that's and that it's not always a bad thing. It helps give you a better look at the bigger picture. And yes, that's absolutely right, Scott. Like there's so many dimensions to this that it becomes a life's work. So I'm afraid I can't provide easy answers. They just aren't there. This is life. Life is meant to challenge us. At least that's our perspective. And it's not meant to be a walk in the park. It's meant for us to. I'm just sharing our belief that life is meant to challenge us to bring out the best in us, so that we grow as a spirit. and as we're dealing with these things from the past, and getting a bigger picture and changing our perspective, we are doing exactly that. And that brings us more in alignment with our authentic self. And the byproduct of that, as soon as you're more aligned with your authentic self, and we believe that the process of actually simply looking at life as an opportunity and a challenge rather than a series of problems is by definition aligning ourselves with our authentic self, because that our belief is that that's what we're meant to do. In that process, as we align with our authentic self is in perfect health. Healing flows naturally. The physical healing, the psychological healing, the emotional healing, every aspect of our total self has the opportunity to receive the healing that will come naturally, because as you know, if you cut your finger, your body knows what to do. It will heal. Yeah, you got to close the wound. And so there's work there. You want to pay attention to it. You can't just ignore it, but close the wound, keep it clean, and your body knows what to do. That is a perfect model for your authentic self. If we pay attention to what's going on in our life, and we keep that wound clean, and we work with it, we nurse ourselves just a little bit, we are doing the work that will bring out our authentic self and create a transformational experience in our life. It means that we can look forward to our day, as challenging as it is, because that river of life that's flowing through, that's flowing, and we're all there in the middle of the stream. There's rocks in that stream. There's sharp bends. There's canyons. There's everything, right? So we have to navigate those things, and it's a challenge rather than it's just sucking, right? Because that's just a fundamental, and there's such a fundamental difference in the way of engaging life that can open up the doors to such transformational healing. So that's what we work with people to help them do, is to do exactly that, to see the opportunity inside the problem, and then seizing the opportunity. So yeah, it's tempting for us to just look at it as a problem, because we didn't ask for it; it just showed up, right? But that's life. That's our fate that brings these things to us, and each one of those things can serve as a signpost to inner work. That's what we part of our philosophy. And by doing that, when I did that, I was able to move out of all of that negativity that I inherited from my earlier parts of my life. So that's a big part of it. And doing this kind of work, it takes courage. So my heart goes out to anyone who does this work. We can give it's appropriate to give yourself credit for taking this kind of thing on, because fear is a big factor in all of this. We're afraid of something going wrong. We're afraid of taking the risk and being let down. I was terrified of loving myself. In a logical way, that makes no sense, but I was, right? Because it meant unraveling so many negative concepts I had about myself. It meant a big change. It meant going outside of what I'd what I had come to think of as normal. And that kind of going into the unknown is inherently scary, right? You might say, what's the big deal? Just love yourself. For some of us, that's a big deal. Even though on the face of it, it seems obvious. So it takes courage. it takes courage to face the day, right? It takes courage to navigate the river of life, to steer your boat past all the rapids, because things can happen, right? And so we're used to doing things one way, but do things a radically different way, like what I was suggesting, to see the opportunity inside the problem and then seize the opportunity. It takes a tremendous amount of courage. It takes you gotta build the heart. You gotta find the heart within. We all have it. But it can be buried, is what I mean. It can be buried under stuff that is, kind of hit us over the years. But we all deserve that love, and we all deserve a life that's enjoyable. So there is a way. There's always a way to do this, and you don't have to jump in, at the first moment, all the way into radical change. You can try it, but that also takes courage. Is just trying it, right? So that's an important aspect of this. We can't be. We work with so many people that don't want to continue the work. They don't want to let go of limiting subconscious beliefs because of the change that would mean, right? Because it means letting go of that old self. It means, generally speaking, it means taking fear and thanking your fear for doing the good work of being aware, and listening to the messages that it has. Like I was saying, if you get the nasty phone bill, what's the message inside that? The fear is like, oh no, I can't go on vacation. What's the message in there? That's finding the opportunity. So you listen to your fear, and then you thank your fear, and then ask it to, take its place in the back seat, because that's where it belongs, not in the driver's seat. So, and fear can, if it hasn't been had any attention paid to it, if it's just been there and doing its thing through the course of our lives, it can develop into a bit of a monster, right? My fear can be just a lovely aspect of myself that has an awareness, has a job, it's appropriate to do what it does, or it can be an out of control monster. And there are different ways to work with it. There's different ways of facing fear and working with it. And even though it seems like it just comes at you, right? There's another episode where I talked about dealing with panic attacks. So there's a video that we created a while back where I talked about my way of dealing with panic attacks, because I had them, right? Here I am talking to you now, but in the past, I literally could not talk to people. I couldn't. I know I'm talking to a camera right now. I get that part, but I also go and talk to people. But I couldn't do that before at all, and I couldn't be in front of a camera like this. That was impossible, because I didn't deserve love. I hated myself, all that kind of stuff. I was very, very hard on myself, and the way I dealt with it, there's a quote from the movie Dune. I don't have it here in front of me, but it's famous. The fear is a mind killer, and I will face my fear. So fear, it comes at you like it can come at you and seem like it's overwhelming coming at you, and like it's all powerful, and there's no way that you can possibly stand up to it. And that's all BS. 100%. That's one way to deal with it, is to simply face it and stay and hold your ground, because it will come rushing at you, and it can just rush right past you if you stand your ground, and then it turns into nothing. Like you're like standing there, it's like, why was I afraid? Right? Literally, that's what happened to me in the moment when I was in a social situation one time, because I avoided social situations like the plague, but I was in one, and I had that panic attack, and I stood there, and I just repeated that saying from the book Dune, over and over in my head, and I was able to let it roll past me. So courage is a big part of this. It you have to find the courage within you in order to deal with this, to make the changes, to create healing, to align yourself with your authentic self. There's no other way. The way I described, that's just one way of dealing with it. There's different ways of dealing with fear, just to be clear. So we get another comment here. Thanks, Scott, for your comments. I really appreciate it. It's great. So anyone else who's on the call here, just send them my way here. Oh yeah. Yeah, fear is a mind killer, Scott. Yeah, I watched it a million times. I've watched it too. I love the movies are great, but the book is even better, right? Of course, as usual. It's brilliant writing. So that's a big part of things. So I hope I have time here to touch a little bit on this next one. It's about faith. And this is a very interesting subject. It's very deep. I could go into this. We could do episodes on this. Faith, I think, is generally misunderstood. So there's blind faith, to thinking that you believe, you just talk yourself into believing something, and then that's faith, right? I don't believe that at all. To me, faith is something that develops over time. And just in a simple sense, like a simple example, when the pond freezes over in winter, right? When is it safe to go out on the pond and not fall through the ice, right? Open question. Did we have enough time of cold weather yet in order to go out safely on the ice and not fall through? And we literally had a pond like that where I grew up, and it freezes in winter sometimes, right? So, and sometimes enough to go out skating on the pond. And it's exciting when it's like that. But you can't just, run out on the ice, right? That's not wise. And that's what I mean by that blind faith. I don't think it's wise to use that blind faith and just say to yourself, oh, it'll work, and just go for it, because it may not, right? So putting one foot, or first of all, actually, we just throw out a rock, right? Everybody throws out a rock on the ice and see if it breaks, right? And eventually they don't, if there's been enough of a cold snap. So you try a bigger rock and a bigger one. And then you get enough proof from that it's holding up to that. So you try your foot, right? You stand with one foot on the bank, on the solid ground, and you put one foot out on the ice, you keep your balance, and you put some weight on it, right? And see if it's holding, see what happens. Does it crack? No. Well, okay, then you put a little more weight on it, see if that cracks. No? Okay. And hopefully you're doing this in a shallow part too, right? It's a good idea. Do it in a shallow part of the pond. Yeah, Scott, you got another couple of great comments here. I'll come back to that. There's this one right here. I'll just bring up. Yeah, blind faith is no substitute for common sense, right? So that's what I'm talking about here. But I'm also talking about it's also experience, right? So you can test the waters, or test the ice here, right? The frozen waters. You can, and then you get that experience of direct experience that it's safe enough to put part of your weight on there. And eventually, you're able to put your whole weight, right? You give that a try. You got to have the courage to do that, and you're putting more and more of your weight on it. You're putting more and more of yourself into the game. So it's a good analogy, right? And if the ice holds up, then your faith is being borne out, right? So you experiment, right? Be open-minded and true, and make it a true experiment, so that you don't just, I threw a rock out there once and it went through, so that's no good. ice isn't safe ever, right? I'm not going to do that because I saw the rock go through, right? Or I put a little bit of my weight on there and I felt a crack, so forget it. I'm never going to try putting my weight on the ice again. The timing isn't right, right? So try again the next day once it's been cold a little longer. So you got to give it a real. You got to give it an honest. You got to treat it honestly and deal with it in a way that's gonna has every opportunity of proving itself. And then that way you're gaining faith. But I could talk about faith in so many other dimensions. Like one I just realized is that another way to think of faith is it's having no attachment. And you might be like, well, what's the connection there? So that's a deep concept to try to explain here. And I don't have a huge amount of time left in this event, but in principle, I'll just touch on it. Basically, we, through our whole lives, just even little kids, you watch a little baby, right? And they come to realize that this is their toy. They attach themselves to that toy, like glue. It's like, this is mine. They'll hold on to their blanket. They'll hold on to their binky, right? They'll suck on that little binky, little soother. And my own daughter, she had the funniest connection to her soother. I called it her precious. You can tell that like science fiction and fantasy and stuff, right? So I called her soother her precious. And so, would you like your precious, that kind of thing. So you play along with it to a certain degree, but you're trying to wean them off of it. Right? So I was weaning her off of her precious at a certain point. And I didn't want to give it to her because she's ready to move on. She's old enough to let go of that thing. And she literally, and I'm not kidding you, she got really upset. She got really mad at me. And she said, verbatim, she said, really in her most angry voice, she says, and she's crying, I want my precious. So it's like, oh my, I had to work so hard to not laugh my butt off, because that's if you're not familiar, that's a direct quote from Lord of the Rings, right? That's what Gollum says. So that I set her up for this when I first started calling it her precious, and I was wondering, are we going to go there someday? And it played itself out to a T. It was just so funny. But no, I did not laugh at her, thankfully, but I did later. But anyway, so having that attachment to those things, those physical things around us, our toys, and your car, that's just a bigger toy. Your house, it's a bigger toy. Your money, right? All of those things, relationships, having friends, every single thing that's out there in our experience, we attach ourselves to them, and we feel secure when we have them. So letting them go and having no attachment to them, that doesn't mean you ignore relationships or don't take care of your house or anything like that. It doesn't mean that. It just means you don't have any emotion. You don't have that need for them. You don't have a need to have them there for you to feel secured, for you to feel centered, for you to be okay with your day and not be freaking out, right? That's what non-attachment is. I could be more sophisticated in my definition, but we'll go with that. Having no attachment then means letting go of all the things that help you feel secure. So that is also building faith. In other words, it means the world is still going to be there for me in the way that I need in order to get from one moment to the next in some fashion. I might have to do some adapting, but it's still going to be there for me and allow me to live and to have a good life, even though I'm not attached to things. So that's just one aspect, as I can go very deep into this, but having that faith. So in other words, and I'll tie it back to my original example of not loving myself, right? If I let go of that belief of not loving myself, I have to have the faith that I'm still going to be okay. I know that's a weird psychology, but it's there, right? And maybe some of you can appreciate it, but we just, like I said, it's just your normal. It's the way, that's the way our world is that we don't deserve love. Maybe like it was for me. If I let it go, am I still going to be okay? Because I was so prone to panic attacks and everything like that, and all the trauma that I've been through. So letting go of that takes faith. It means not having attachment to that subconscious belief that runs me down in the end. So it does take faith, and it goes hand in hand with the courage, right? So that's a big part of this whole process of healing. And so by having the faith, let go of that negative belief that I don't love myself, I don't deserve love, or I don't love myself. And that allows me to bring in the healing. It allows me to bring in good things into my life. It allows me to use the law of attraction to bring more love into my life, right? Because that's what we want to do here. We want to, love is intimately connected to healing. You can't separate those two things. Scott, you're cracking me up here. Dirty little bags. So, yeah, that's so funny. My daughter, that was too funny, that situation. She wanted her precious. So, thanks, Scott, for that. You're cracking me up. I just want to see if I've got time here for an exercise that might relate to some of the stuff. I'll throw this one in here. This is for today. This is a very deep exercise. So we can ask ourselves, have we had enough suffering yet? We can meditate on that. So the point here is that we do suffer. And my heart goes out to you guys, because life has an almost inescapable element of suffering to it. That suffering comes when we're attached to things and they're pulled away from us. If we lose that vacation time because of that stupid phone bill. So we could suffer if we're attached to that vacation. When we're looking to heal, to truly heal through a natural means, it means coming to terms with this question: have we had enough suffering yet? Because if we haven't, then we're going to continue to insist on doing things the way we always have. We're going to go with our comfort zone. We're going to attach ourselves to our normal way of doing things, because it's normal to be attached. It's normal to be, in our society, it's normal to be attached to our car, our house, our clothes, our money, friends, our partner, to be attached to all of those things. It's normal. So, but having all those attachments leaves us wide open to suffering. When any one of those things we might lose it. We get attached to our hopes of going on a vacation, right? Maybe we're not even in a position to possibly have the vacation, but we attach ourselves to the hope. So there's another attachment, and it's not even a thing. It's an idea. It's a possibility in the future. It doesn't even exist, and we can attach ourselves to it. We can attach ourselves to the past, right? All the things we've been through, all the awful experiences, the losses. We get smacked around. And if we want to heal, we have to decide that there's been enough suffering and that we want to do things differently. because the suffering comes from doing things the same. The suffering comes from accepting that normal way of living our lives, especially here in the West, right? Western society, where it's so materialistic, we're attached to all those things. And we depend on them being here for us to enjoy, to supposedly enjoy our day. When everything is lined up perfectly, exactly the way we want it, that's when we say, okay, it's finally okay to enjoy our day. That doesn't happen too often. Life is life. So if we want to heal, we need to make the change. If we want to end the suffering, because it's one thing to lose the vacation time, it sucks. But the suffering comes from the attachment to that, having that, instead of letting it go and finding that opportunity inside that event, right? That nasty bill. That nasty bill brought attention to our whole life. We could live it differently. So what a gift. So, phone company, they just thought, hey, we'll send this nasty bill to this person. We'll get some money out of them. Well, what did they do? They gave a really stinky gift. That's a stinky gift. But inside that, if we change that problem into an opportunity, we can see that it is a gift. There's something of great value in there, something beautiful. The opportunity to live our life in a totally different way that is aligned with the flow of life instead of fighting it. Letting life teach us, letting life show us the way, listening to the bill and the fear that comes up. And that fear comes up and says, no, I'm going to lose my vacation. That fear. Then if we listen to it, the message inside that fear, and then if we use that as a signpost, as a flag, say, hey, we can make a little change here, then we can shift our way of looking at things and engage our whole life differently. And what an amazing gift that nasty phone bill turned out to be. Right? And we've seen that all happen. We go through these horrendous changes in our lives and we look back at it after we've gotten past it and that was the best thing that happened to me, right? It was awful to go through. It was really hard. But there's something of value in there if we look for it, if we look for those opportunities. So that's where I think we'll go today, and I'll just let you know that if you do have difficulties with this stuff, and I understand that it's generally, basically, the difficulty comes with it being in the subconscious mind. So those assumptions that we've built our life on, that, maybe one, like I said, not deserving love is an assumption that we've made, a belief that we've taken on, a subconscious belief that maybe we're not even aware that it's there. We've just gone through our life living it that way. Our whole lives, don't even know. It's just, to us, it's normal. And that subconscious belief can be at the root of what's preventing us from enjoying our life, preventing us from healing. So that's what we have our breakthrough sessions for. They're completely free. You can just sign up on our website, sakaso.ca, and we can chat with you for a while and see what we can do about creating a program to create the healing in your life, the natural healing. And thanks for coming by, you guys. We'll see you right here next Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern. Satomi should be back. I hope I didn't torture you with not having Satomi here. I consider her the star of the show, but this is how it goes, right? So we'll see you next week on the Aether, Sunday, 4 p.m. Like, subscribe, share. We appreciate it. And bless you guys. Take care and see you next week. Bye-bye.